interested in checking out Tulsi's positions. I've read some things that I'm not really sure where she stands, and I've been a supporter, and I want to know that as she represents me in Washington, that she is presenting the side that I think will help us as a country, and certainly hope that that's where she's headed. Syria and what's happening in our military, and I know she's been there. I know she knows what it's like, and I know that she isn't too happy to jump right in. So I want to hear what she has to say.
Last December, I introduced a bill called the Stop Arming Terrorists Act, and I'll explain a little bit about why this bill is so important. What many people are not aware of is that right now in Syria, there are two wars being waged for years now. The first war is the war to defeat terrorist groups like ISIS. This is a war that is serious and we must win. And the second war is another counterproductive regime change war to overthrow the Syrian government. This is counterproductive because any action that moves towards this objective of overthrow of regime change in Syria basically strengthens terrorist organizations like ISIS and Al-Qaeda, who have been fighting on the ground in Syria for years with that objective of overthrowing the Syrian government so that they can take over that country. So my bill, the Stop Arming Terrorists Act, came about after a recognition and realizing that for years, covertly, in the dark of night through the CIA, our government has been providing arms, intelligence, salaries, and other types of support to armed militants in Syria who are directly allied with terrorist groups like Al-Qaeda. We have been providing support to armed militants who are allied with and often under the command of terrorist groups like Al-Qaeda.
We have a right to know what our military is doing on our behalf. And Tulsi's position on questioning the bombing of Syria the other day, wanting some facts and some investigation and the Congress to go forward without just a reaction, without a full plan of how we're going to play this out. I need to hear what she has to say so that I can make an informed decision. I really respect what she's doing, and again, without a functioning public that's active and participating, our democracy is at risk.
This is why what Secretary of State Tillerson said yesterday, we rededicate ourselves to holding to account any and all who commit crimes against the innocents anywhere in the world.
Except us.
Essentially saying that the United States will now act as the world's police, without any regard to what that actually means. What does that mean to American lives? What does that mean to American resources and the needs that we have here at home?
Yeah, I'm very concerned about the ramp up of military rhetoric. Even progressives are starting to go along with the line that it's okay to use a military action before diplomacy. We're cutting our funds to the UN, to the State Department, to foreign aid. This really, really concerns me because without dialogue, we're just not going to get to where we need to go to work on issues like global warming and environmental concerns and humanitarian concerns. So the dialogue has to come first. It has to be played right along with military options.
If Assad did not carry out the chemical attack, who else might have had the capacity and the motive to do so?
You know, we have seen different opinions, different theories, different ideas on what occurred. Also what has occurred over the last several years in Syria. What I have been outspoken on is the fact that our president, in my view, recklessly launched a U.S. military strike illegally and unconstitutionally without consulting Congress and without giving care and attention to the consequences. there are very serious consequences to this. Not only this strike in and of itself to escalating this regime change war, but given the fact that Syria is so closely aligned with Russia, that Russia has troops on the ground there. We've just seen Russia and Iran stepping up, I believe yesterday or this morning, basically saying if you launch another attack on Syria, we will reciprocate, that there will be consequences. We don't know exactly what those will be, but look, this is something that I learned very early on as a young soldier in training in the Army National Guard, is that for every action that you take, there is a reaction. There are repercussions and ripple effects that you have to have as a leader, the foresight and judgment to foresee. We see with Iraq and Libya the lack of that, the lack of good judgment and the lack of asking and answering the questions, what happens the day after? What are the consequences to our actions there? And unfortunately, we've seen the failure in Iraq and Libya, and we've seen what the consequences are to these regime change wars. These wars have been launched under the auspices of humanitarianism and helping to relieve people's suffering. But in both Iraq and Libya and now in Syria, we are seeing in these examples that the suffering of the people in these countries has only increased because of our policies and because of our actions. The loss of life has increased. Refugees have increased. What to speak of the fact that when we look at our national security interests, in each of these examples, terrorist groups like Al-Qaeda and ISIS have grown stronger. The territories they control have grown, and they now have strongholds in places that they didn't have before. This is why it's so important that we recognize, especially again, as I mentioned earlier, Secretary Tillerson is starting to talk about the United States going and being the world's police.